Welcome to another episode of Husbands Watching Housewives. I'm Scott.
I'm Jeff.
And we just watched an episode of The Real Housewives of New York City.
Yep, we did.
And I thought that was going to be a little bit more, it was a little bit like Erin said, but I thought it'd be more of that than it was. I thought it made more sense.
The whole thing just makes my head hurt, and I can't even with it of like who knew what when, and the definition of being in on it, and it just gets messy. And like, I think the points are, Erin made it messier than it needed to be. Brynn, no matter when she knew what she knew, she's still and always will be the leaky pigeon, number one. And you can't trust her. Raquel, I get it. She's trying to figure things out, being new to the group, but I'm like, just simmer down now, if you can. Rebecca, to Scientology, whatever, you're talking in loops, much like a Scientologist does. So got it. I know who you are. And the rest, we're just there. Yeah.
No, I agree. It did get down into the definition of what the word is.
Yes.
So I was waiting for it to get that detailed. But
the minutia, yes.
But no, you're right. I think you handled that. You covered that well. I mean, took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But again, I liked that it was still... Like, I thought Erin was going to get a lot more upset about it than she did, although you could tell she was really pissed off. Like,
at Raquel, mainly, yes.
Her facial expressions were just like, she's not having it. But, like, I thought for sure she was going to deny, and, like, I don't know what you're talking about. The fact that she even said, like, okay, I can see what Bryn's talking about, and I'm sorry if you felt like I was asking you to be part, I liked that conversation we had.
If you want to, like, pull this prank off, you should just, like, had a clear vision and not deviated from it, meaning stay away from the people you think you're going to break with, i.e. Brynn. Shouldn't have gone to drinks with her. Shouldn't be like, okay, I got to go to this next thing. And, and then they would have revealed the thing at Dodgeball or whenever they revealed it. I don't know if they thought that far in advance, but you messed it up. Is it you wasted your own Picard?
It can be now. It's hoisted by your own petard.
Sure.
But I like the Star Trek reference there. That was good. I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was.
I'm going to foist my Picard more often.
We all should. But yeah, you just made it like a whole mess, Erin. And I like you. I think everyone just started off by saying, I like Erin, I love Erin, but, and it's like, yeah, she just causes this chaos that doesn't need chaos to accompany it. Yeah, accompany it. So yeah. I guess I'm more interested in that, whatever that crap. I had heard the rumor about Sai breaking up her husband's marriage.
Before you even get there, though, this was actually kind of a smooth machination of like, let's go around the table and talk about rumors we've heard about each other. So I thought for sure someone's big Erin, I heard a rumor that Brynn actually already knew. Like, it wasn't really introduced that way, but it seemed like the perfect opportunity. So I did kind of like, it was for once kind of a Housewives, let's go around the table that didn't end poorly necessarily.
No, it was yet again a dumb game. It should just be like, what have you heard about you that's not true? They've done it on like Watch It Happens Live to this extent. But yeah, basically it was like, what are we seeing on Reddit that isn't actually true about us? I.e., Sai did not break up her husband's marriage. He was already divorced 6 years before they got together. I can't remember the other ones, but that was one that stuck out for me because I thought I've seen that before, and that started showing up last year because people didn't like Sai. So like, oh, she's a homewrecker, and it's like, actually, no, that's not the truth. Right. You're just a troll.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that story. I mean, maybe you might have mentioned it to me, but I was like, I don't care.
I saw like in some Instagram comment or whatever, but yeah. And then nothing, they didn't really get into Jessel about any rumors about, that she had tricked Pavitt into getting him. Whatever. I don't care. You're married.
Yeah.
I kind of stopped caring like during certain parts of that picnic because it was just, information wasn't really exciting to me.
And they're rumors. So it's relevant. It's just like, okay. That's good to know. Sort of keep that.
I think, Rebecca had the chance, skipping to her, to clear up things, to go clear, if you will. And she just didn't. She's like, well, it's this and that. I use it to help me with this. And it's like, okay, so you don't know where Shelley Miscavige is. Just that's all I want to know. You've never met Tom Cruise or John Travolta, whatever. You don't have a beef with Leah Remini, or do you?
I don't know. These are things we would like to know.
Yes. I like that. She makes Scientology boring.
I mean, Scientology at the end of the day probably is much more boring. I mean, than it.
Right. If you're a true Scientologist, you're never going to actually dispel these myths. No one ever says to Tom Cruise, do you know where Shelley Miscavige is? Right. No one has the balls to say it.
Right.
And he wouldn't own up to it if he did. He would just deny or I'm not going to comment on that. So the thing with Scientologists is they will never give you direct, straight answers unless you have left Scientology, i.e. Leah Remini. And anyone who's left will tell you the honest truth about it. But everybody else is loop-de-loop-de-loop-de-loop.
Well, and the women...
And that's just dull to me. So that's why I'm Rebecca is dull. I like her, but she's dull in that moment.
Well, I think talking about, I think if they brought her on the show to talk about Scientology, that was a bad move.
Yes.
Like you say, Scientologists don't talk about it.
They're very guarded.
I mean, I like that she's at least acknowledging that she is a Scientologist and that, how she feels it works for her life. That's interesting insofar as anyone would talk about how religion works for their life. I don't really want to sit here and hear more about how, Erin, practices religion any more than I want to hear Rebecca talk about it.
Or how Jenna thinks that religion is the main cause of death.
Right. I mean, I think
more than wars and cancer. I was whoa.
Statistically speaking, though, I think that's true. I think a lot of wars are caused by religion.
Religion, yes. It's just it's a very deep thought for a very shallow show.
But I thought that some of the women's reactions to the whole Scientology conversation was interesting, especially Jessel's, where she's like, I don't know much about it, but I know that if I went home and told Pavitt I'm a Scientologist, he'd freak out.
Yeah, as anybody would. Or aside being I'm not going to say anything. My name is Bennett. I ain't in it. Don't tap my phone. Yeah.
She, I also thought later when Jessel was making her little metaphor about Scientology, that I was like, this isn't going to land at all.
No.
It actually landed. It took a long way for her to get there. And right now, why can't I remember what it was?
It was if a Scientologist goes into a church and accuses them of being in a cult.
Yeah.
I'm sure Rebecca's going to appreciate that at the reunion.
Yeah. But I mean, I thought for sure, especially when she just came from her saying, I don't know much about Scientology, for her to come around and make this metaphor that's pretty much it's a cult. I was just okay. Did the producer say, oh, it's kind of like a cult? She's like, oh, I can say something about that.
Right. Am I weird? What was with the leather pillbox hat and the see-through top in her confessional?
Jessel's?
Yes.
Oh, I don't think I know you mentioned something about a hat, but I didn't register it.
Did you not see the outfit? Oh my Lord, get off your phone, man. It was more of a look than Meredith's fur halter.
I'll have to go back and check. I was monitoring our latest TikTok performance, okay? I'm social mediaing while we're watching.
Well, be in that moment for New York. Give New York their moment. Hold some space for New York.
I was happy that New York wasn't boring. I thought it was very light.
Aside from Rebecca.
The pacing was good. I feel like it moves from scene to scene, and we got to the scene.
No, once we got out of the picnic, it excelled for me.
Yeah.
So, but that look, it's a lot of a look, and it's take one thing off, as Coco Chanel said, before you walk out the door or step into your confessional, because it looks so weird.
Was her hat worse than Dorit's hat at the avant-garde at the Dolly party?
No, nothing's worse than that. That wasn't a hat. That was a beret with a disc on top. No, this is an actual dominatrix Jackie O pillbox hat.
Okay.
Yeah, versus Jackie Kennedy, because she was Kennedy then.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then a see-through top. It's just weird.
I like size see-through top she was wearing when she went over to Ubah's house.
That was cute.
I thought that was...
Jessel's is kind of the one that Kyle wore last season in her confessional, the see-through with the white collar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if they call those collars, but there's a term for it.
We're going to go back and watch it when we're done here, so I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So
he leaves the picnic, and it's a lot of good personal scenes.
Yeah.
Ubah making the tough decision about what to do. She has a thyroid, and it's
fibroid.
Fibroid. Oh, sorry.
The fibroid nearing her uterine lining.
Yes.
Which would make conceiving difficult.
Yes, and it's a very precarious place, and it's what does she do about it? And that's a real issue that a lot of women are dealing with. And I think bringing that onto the show was great.
I do feel like this episode was, I think maybe they chose to edit them all in the same episode. So it could be like, here's our public service announcement, which I'm not trying to talk back on it, but it's like, it was a lot of information, like the other women are going through this sort of thing. And I want to speak about this as a platform, between, Erin and Ubah, and then, Jenna getting, it just seemed like the time to share all their personal stories. And I think that is a great thing about Housewives, all the different shows, is when they are able to share these stories. And, even though as longtime viewers, we've seen them and kind of heard about them before on other franchises, it doesn't make it any different. There's someone who's new to this, who's watching Housewives for the first time. And this is the first time they're hearing about fibroids or, about the difficulties of having an abortion and,
there are a lot of people, Housewives fans, who have not watched any other cities and are now like, checking this out and like, oh, I can relate to this. I've been through that. The fact that like Erin didn't go into that conversation with Jenna knowing that Jenna had had an abortion as well, but once she shared, it made her feel really comfortable. And I think, vice versa. Jenna was like, well, I don't want to leave her hanging out there knowing that I've had an abortion so I can talk about my experience. And, it's obviously very timely, as they were talking about. Mm-hmm. And just to like put that out there in a way that didn't feel, it was just like a natural conversation about women's health, you know? Right. So I think that was, women watch the show and it's made by women, with women. And so I think it felt natural.
And I was to say, like, I think if we were straight men and had any, experience with pregnancy, that might, we might be able to relate more to it. But being that we're Gold Star gays, that we've never had a brush with pregnancy and we've never had to, face those decisions or, ourselves or these issues ourselves, it makes it difficult to,
chime in. But it's like, but I think that's why it was good that we had that very last minute moment with Erin's father at the end where he said that he had been through it. And the woman he knew that he got pregnant had an abortion, and then her experience after that, and because
no, and then that was interesting. That's the sort of scene that made me think that, like, oh yeah, I mean, you don't often hear about it from the man's perspective. Not that it really is warranted,
right?
But it's just interesting to hear him, in his experience with it, and he wasn't being judgmental about anything that was going on, and. So it was definitely an interesting episode to hear these stories and to see what they're going through and how they're handling it.
Yeah.
So, but Ubah's fibroid, that's scary and everything, because like as she was saying, is if they get too, it was maybe last episode we learned, or maybe earlier in this one, where if they get too close to it,
this one,
removing it, that it could cause problems, and so that's the sort of thing where I guess it's two sides of the same coin, where Ubah's trying to have a kid, and then Erin's talking about the ramifications of an unwanted pregnancy,
right? Trying
to get that kind of an even perspective on it. It's interesting,
but what's great is that they can or have made choices for themselves, which is the most important thing, that everyone should have autonomy over their bodies.
Absolutely.
So, but also interesting, that Ubah's met somebody finally she wants to have a kid with, and now it's like there's this, but then her attitude of like, well, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. That's kind of like what she's kind of saying.
Yeah, she's saying, life happens, to you.
For you, not to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have hopeful feelings that she's going to get that sorted out, and medically things will work out. I mean, we haven't heard really anything more about that journey, but she's still relatively young in the scheme of modern pregnancies.
She might have mentioned something on Watch What Happens Live, because there was that episode with Erin and Ubah and Kyle and Garcelle. So right after this,
okay.
So we're going to watch that.
We need to watch that.
Yeah. But then the Ubah Erin thing, that they flash back to the picnic and Ubah saying like, oh, Jenna, now you're getting gaslit. Glad it's not me. And I'm like, I'm tired.
It's a little overreactionary, and I think on Erin's behalf, be even irritated about that. And
I don't know.
You just don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that she had ill intention to gas light Ubah, but then we see it snowballs. That's
I think that's what Erin was saying. Erin was Erin.
That's what Ubah was saying.
I don't think that's what Ubah is truly meaning to say. Like, it sounded to me that she's just probably using gaslight. It sounded like the whole use of the word gaslight was a little maybe just what's the word of the day. It was just like, oh, everyone's using this word, I'm gonna use it too. It just sounded like Ubah was saying, I'm usually the one who's sitting here not knowing what's going on, and everyone acting like they know what's going on,
right,
making me feel like an idiot. I'm glad now it's not me feeling like an idiot, it's you, Jenna. So that's what I was picking up from it. I don't really think that Ubah was truly saying Erin's going around gaslighting people.
I think that's pretty much what she said.
Really?
Yeah, she was like, Erin's not gaslighting me, she's gaslighting you.
Again, I just feel like she's... I think we could have interchanged the word confusing and gaslighting, and we would have gotten the same vibe off of it.
I don't know. That's what she meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's why we need to and I'm sure it'll be just the whole definition of in on it. I think this will be rehashed and hashed some more at the reunion. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, far be it for me to tell Ubah what she meant, but I mean, when I heard her say it, it felt more like I'm just throwing the word gaslight out there because everyone's been saying that.
I don't think that's what she was doing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever make a mushroom risotto when you were in college?
I didn't know what those words were. I was in college circa 1997.
Yeah. I don't make risotto today at all. I try not to because it's a thin line between good and awful. So I try not to. But I thought that was an interesting little...
Yes, to have that moment also speaking about children and, and Jenna...
spitting out her drink when the producer asked if
you want to have another kid. She's like, are you kidding me? But yeah, it's the whole idea of that you have a kid, it's your world revolves around them, and then you have to guide them to be responsible adults. And it's kind of I can imagine that being very difficult of okay, not that your work is done because you'll always be a parent, but they have to now go off in the world and figure stuff out on their own and, fly.
Fly, Robin, fly.
Yes. Leave the nest, fly, all those metaphors.
And I'm thinking, fly.
Oh, I know that.
Okay,
yes.
All right.
Who are you talking to?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you're just gaslighting me. I was a little confused.
No, Ubah, Erin, whoever... yes, sweet scene.
What do you think about Jenna and her hall pass for Raquel?
That was so weird. I'm like, why are we touching? Why are we smelling? Is that just how lesbians greet each other? I was just so hey, and I got my scent on you. It was I was
wondering about it. Well, it made me also think that Raquel did come in at least they were making it seem that she came in extra flirty. They made me wonder did she just come off a lunch where she had a couple cocktails and go, hey girl,
look at my legs.
Yeah. But that was a cute little scene. I do wonder how many times they could make laps around that one art gallery that had 4 things hanging on the wall.
Well, 4 things, but they're all $7,000 each, so that's basically half a house.
Yeah. I did that whole thing. It was just that
have a small house.
Some of that art, it was $70,000. Is that what it said?
I thought it was 7. Maybe you're right. It was
1,000.
Maybe it was 7.
Well, the fact
there was a 7.
A small house. I'm just wondering how much.
Well, that's when I said it. I was like, oh wait, no. Even if you have 4 paintings, that's only 28,000. Yeah. That's a very rinky-dink house.
Yeah, let's just say that's a half of a nice car.
There you go.
Very nice car.
There you go.
So, unless you're moving to
Indiana
or someplace, or you've got a time machine and you're going back into 2001 or something.
God, or the 50s. I don't know.
Yeah. But that art, I know that Raquel's in the art world and everything, and can probably, sit there and tell us why that is, such an expensive piece of art. I would like to have heard some of that because, especially when they're showing these things that are otherwise. I don't want to say ink blots because, they weren't. But
Rorschach tests?
Well, I mean, that's Pollock. Everyone always said Jackson Pollock stuff was, trite because it was just ink splatter. But, it is a form of art in some way or another. But it just seems like when everything on the wall just kind of looked like someone took a paint roller. I don't know. I could have used a moment of why that is art and why she thinks it's beautiful. If she's going to be an art critic or an art in the art world, I'd like to hear some of that, even if it was just a minute or two, other than oh, this is nice,
Well, she got into the art of it all in other episodes.
But I could still use a little peppering of it, especially if I hang out at an art gallery that has 4 things on the wall and 2 rugs under glass. So
it was very New York.
It made me wonder, like, we need art for our house. I don't know if we need art, but we need things on the wall other than this. If we had this all over our walls, like all over the house, it'd be weird. Only the podcast studio.
Can we just put up a picture of my dad?
Yeah, no, I don't think we should. Do you want to do that?
His name is Art.
Oh, so slow. Okay. Now I'm an idiot.
No, that was a dumb dad joke. Sorry.
That was a dumb dad joke.
It was.
Well, touche. What Jessel didn't really have anything on her episode.
Brendan either. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, looks like she's gonna stir the pot next week.
Her arms getting so tired.
So tired.
Oh.
Erin and her dad. I mean, that's worth mentioning.
It's really sad.
It is.
It was great that they had obviously so much love, and she such a protector and like a cheerleader for her, and he was like, I think just what you want in a dad. And the fact that she told him the story and he's like, didn't blink, he's like, okay,
right,
sorry you went through that, and but you're fine, you're strong now, and then to see that or to know that he passed away so recently, it's very, very sad.
It's sad, but I'm glad they got. That's sort of thing. As she was getting ready to tell him, part of me was kind of like, is this just performative for the show? But then I like that there was the reason behind it of like, oh well, this is a story about me he doesn't know. This article is going to come out or interview
on a podcast.
And I don't want him to catch wind of it and how come you never told me about that?
Right.
So on that one regard, I was like, I like that there's a natural reason why she was telling him, but also that like that's the sort of thing that I'm glad she could at least share with him, especially if it's something she felt that strongly about before he died. Because there's nothing worse than regrets, especially with the parent, or anyone you're never going to see again. Like, I wish I had said X, Y, or Z. They knew these things about me.
It would be great to with anyone leaving your life that nothing is unsaid. Yeah.
But at the same time, I hope that one of the last things that he heard wasn't about how she had an abortion. Like, I hope they had other moments.
I'm sure they did. That was like one filming moment.
I don't want her. It wasn't sudden. Obviously, he was ill.
Well, it's 4 months after this conversation,
right?
So I'm sure they had many moments.
I don't know. Like 4 months could go by, and I call, "Hey, Dad, what's up?"
But they were very close. I think they were talking. Like,
I think you're right. I think you're right. I'm just saying. I hope that they had some.
I think they did. Yes. So I'm going to shut that down.
You are. Damn. So, but otherwise, next week looks like it's going to be more of the same. I think the episode got better than last week's episode.
It was very, for people talking about like how like the show is bullshit. They're not really friends, or like it's not like real Housewives. These were real conversations, real moments with friends, family members, and or just a woman talking to her doctor. Like it was, but done in a way that wasn't dull. It was like you cared about these people, you care about them,
right? And
you wanted to hear their stories, and that's what Housewives should be,
right?
So, I think people were just like so quick to like dismiss the show. There are moments of like really good material like this, and I think they hope they do more of that.
Yeah, I think if we move away from the prank and future,
never ever want to do any more pranks.
If we move away from that, and if I think we don't get too buried in this whole like technicality of who told who what when about anything else, I think the show can eke out the rest of the season with a positive opinion,
right,
from many people. I think just people felt, I think, a little snowed over by the prank.
That, and it's like, and now the follow-up and the minutia, it's confusing, and I can see like it pushing away an audience. So I hope that people didn't turn off their TV after this, like, well, I told her then and she wasn't in on it, and like stayed for the rest of the episode, which was like much better than the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Less, probably. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah.
Dang it all, I had one nice final thought to say, but it just walked out of my damn head. So I think on that, I think we'll do this next time.
Till next time.